Boy, will you look at that? It is 7:30 on the dot, and I am ready to go. I am so proud of myself. Okay, today's show, we'll talk a little bit of football, but I think we're going to talk more about just like not necessarily the state of the Cowboys, but is this season has not gone the way that some people thought it would go. Some people thought it would go exactly like this, and it's strictly because of things that happened or didn't happen in the offseason. But I think the real question might be, is it worth salvaging? Because right now, if you think about it, you kind of in line to get a top 3 pick. That might not be a bad thing. Let's talk about it right now.
Here we go! Yeah, here we go! Wait,
Cowboys. Throws back of the end zone. There's CeeDee
What's going on, everybody? Cowboy C3 here, live again to talk about my favorite team, the Dallas Cowboys. All right. This week, a lot of different things have been going on, but none of it really football related. Well, I guess it's kind of football related. Because it has to do with the team. But a lot of things like interviews, things that are happening with the team that are just, quite frankly, distractions, right? There seems to be no focus with this team, and the focus, I think, has been gone for a long time. It's kind of just a kind of a thought in the wind, really, when you start talking about like, well, I told you so, or, just, things like that. But these things that have happened with this team, you can see them coming from a mile away if you really just pay close attention, right? You're playing in these games. Things are not going your way, and then you come out and your quarterback gets hurt and things seem to be going really bad then. And then you play the Eagles, and the Eagles are, a rival team. And you come in and the quarterback play against the Eagles from both quarterbacks, not just Cooper Rush, but Trey Lance as well, was terrible. It was terrible. And, you really start to think like, man, I can't believe that, things, have gotten this bad. And Jerry was asked about quarterback play right after the game, and this was his response.
We've won 3 games with Dak. Okay, so I'm just saying, we weren't playing well with Dak at all. I thought that basically we'd look better tonight without Dak. I thought we'd look better on offense than we looked without Dak. Seen Cooper play better than we played tonight. Philadelphia's got a lot to do with that. That's what it is. We've won 3.
So that's his response to the whole thing. That was his response. And that's kind of amazing because I think that if you really take the time and look at this thing honestly, and you start to realize it, like there's a lot of people that aren't Dak Prescott fans. They're just not. And that's understandable, right? And I get it. Because, salute to you too, Mike. How you doing? There's a lot of people that just aren't Dak Prescott fans. And like I said, that's understandable. Things have not gone the way that a lot of people thought that it would go, especially with the talent that has been on this team at certain times. your quarterback play, especially in the playoffs, right? Quarterback play in the playoffs has not been good. But you start to take a deeper dive into it and you start to try to ask yourself why. Why has the play with this team been so high during the regular season, but then it gets so low when it comes to playoff time? And I promise you, I'm going to flip all this around and it'll all make sense in a minute. So you start to look at each playoff game, starting with 2022 against the San Francisco 49ers. The playoff game where Dak slid with like 8 seconds left in the game and ended up costing them the game because they couldn't get back to the line of scrimmage on time. In that playoff game, the Cowboys had an NFL record 17 penalties, including 3 defensive holding penalties by the same player on run plays. It is virtually impossible to get a holding penalty on a run play. And it seemed like in that game, every time the Cowboys would take a step forward, they take 3 steps back. Then you go again to the next year. You go to 2020. You go to the 2021. That happened. 2022. You go to 2022. And if you go back and look at highlights of the game, you can go back and watch the game. They have these condensed games where you can watch the games real fast. You know, like you can watch the entire game in 30 minutes. And you go back and look at the game, the offense was moving the ball extremely well against San Francisco in that game. And then Tony Pollard got hurt. Once Tony Pollard got hurt, the game plan went to crap, right? Nothing you can do about it. There could have been some things that could have been done during the game, but they weren't done, and the Cowboys lose another playoff game to San Francisco. And then last year, you go and you play Green Bay Packers, and you get absolutely trounced at home. And since then, you have not won a game at home. Like you haven't won a game. So why are these things happening? You go fast forward, well, actually rewind for us now, but fast forward from that playoff game into the offseason, and you made no significant moves because you didn't have any money, right? And in all actuality, you did, because you had opportunities to sign your quarterback and your wide receiver. Like, you know, there was a lot of fuss last year that, you know, these 3 big contracts were coming up at the same time. I don't think people really realized that Micah Parsons had a 5th-year option. So the Cowboys were definitely going to exercise that, so all 3 contracts wouldn't have to be paid at the same time. But you still had these 2 big contracts that were looming. And the NFL was kind of setting you up, right? Because you had Jordan Love signed for $56 million. You had Trevor Lawrence signed for $55 million. And you had Justin Herbert signed for $55 million. Well, Dak Prescott obviously had outplayed Trevor Lawrence and Justin Herbert up until that point, right? Up until the beginning of this season. He had outplayed both of them. So you have to ask yourself, well, how much more did he outplay him? Well, he probably outplayed him by about $5 million. You know what I'm saying? So there's your $60 million. That's where that came from. Jordan Love obviously came in here during the playoffs and just whooped our ass. But you go back and you start watching these interviews and you start listening to him and Micah Parsons have this interview because they become pretty good friends. And you listen to this interview where Jordan Love was talking about the game plan against the Cowboys. And the game plan against the Cowboys literally was just to run at the 195-pound middle linebacker and then, you know, make adjustments from there. So, well, not even make adjustments, just continue to do it until the Cowboys make adjustments from there. And they never did. So they just kept running the ball at the 195-pound middle linebacker. You know, and nothing against Marquise Bell. Marquise Bell was doing what he was assigned to do. He's just light. You know what I mean? If I could put an offensive lineman, a 300-pound offensive lineman on a 195-pound middle linebacker, I'll weigh you by 100 pounds. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to take you where I want you to go. Right? So fast forward to the offseason. You don't do anything because you can't afford players. And then right after training camp ends, you sign CeeDee Lamb. And then right before the season starts, and I mean literally hours before the season starts, you sign Dak Prescott. And that magically opens up $26.8 million in salary cap space. Trevor Lawrence is not very good. You're absolutely right, Mike, but he makes $55 million a year. He does do that. So all of a sudden, this $27 million opens up in salary cap space. And you're like, damn, well, how did that happen? You know? And the Cowboys come out in the Cleveland game and they look pretty good. They do. But then you start to realize that Cleveland is just a bad team. You come into a game against New Orleans where you really think that this team is going to, New Orleans, it hasn't been good in the past, in past 2 or 3 years. They haven't been great, haven't been really that good since Drew Brees left. And they come in and absolutely whoop your ass. I mean, and give you a whooping. And then you start to think like, okay, well, maybe, something's obviously wrong. It's the defense. But the offense didn't do much. They didn't do much. And then if you really start to take a deep dive into it, you start to realize that Brandon Cooks can't get open. The ball is only going to CeeDee Lamb, but there's really no continuity with it. And because he wasn't in training camp because he didn't sign a contract until the week after training camp was over with. This running back by committee thing, Zeke, that exercise is not going to work out. It's just not. Zeke was kind of washed up when he left here, and you let him go for a reason. So fast forward to you lose to Baltimore. You beat what's ended up being a pretty good Pittsburgh team after you beat the Giants as well in a game that was a lot closer than it should have been, right? Well, you thought that it should have been. And like right now, like I really think the Giants might be a better football team than you. You go into a Pittsburgh game and you beat a pretty quality opponent, an opponent who hasn't lost since they lost to you. They made a quarterback change and the team got a lot better. And then you have a bye week, and then you play Detroit, and the Detroit game was absolutely embarrassing. Then you go into a bye week and you lay an egg after the bye week. And then you come into this Philadelphia game where everything kind of falls. Well, actually, you go to the Atlanta game and your quarterback gets hurt. And your quarterback gets hurt doing something that he's kind of been pressured into doing. Not really pressured into doing, but just trying to make something happen. He's playing hard, right? He's playing really hard. And yeah, miss you too, man. So playing really hard, trying to make things happen, takes off running, ends up tearing his hamstring, and he has season-ending surgery today, right? You go into the Philly game and you really think, right? You really, really think, and hold on, Danny, I'm going to click that comment and we're going to get to that in just a minute. You really, really think about how, okay, Cooper Rush was the quarterback for this team when Dak got hurt a couple years ago, and he played really well, right? And automatically fans think like, hey, okay, Cooper Rush is about to come in here and do the same thing that he did before, and it's probably going to look better than Dak Prescott, and we're going to win some games, and we really, really, really going to show people how this $60 million quarterback was just a waste of money, right? He was a waste of money. $60 million down the damn drain. And Cooper Rush comes in and throws for 46 yards and loses 2 fumbles. And then Trey Lance comes in. He's slightly more effective, but he throws a pick where, some things happen and you can't even, you don't even know what the hell is going on. Like he just threw in the cover two, threw it right to the safety. Jalen Tolbert, sure, he didn't look back for the ball, but hell, he's looking at the safety. He just decided he was going to play defense. I'm going to try to knock the hell out this safety because the ball is going right to him, right? So come back after the game and you're like, okay, maybe Dak Prescott may be a little bit more important to this team than you think he is. And then your owner has an interview like I played before, right? So then there's this whole argument about the sunlight in the stadium. And you're like, the sunlight in the stadium? Like what? Like what are we talking about with sunlight? And CeeDee Lamb couldn't see a pass from Cooper Rush for a touchdown. And even on this picture, shit, it's hard to see, right? So then after the game, CD Lamb was asked about it.
Are you in favor of curtains? Yes, 1,000%.
Will you talk to Jerry about that?
I mean, y'all doing my job right now.
So CD Lamb is obviously in favor of curtains in the stadium. And this has been a problem in the stadium for a long time. And anybody that's been to the stadium, or even if you've seen pictures, just games on TV or whatever, you understand that this is an issue with the stadium. You got these windows in the end zone and in the west end zone. So the stadium doesn't sit north and south. The stadium sits east and west. And that is an architectural disaster, right? The way you can overcome it is that you don't put glass in the west end zone so the sun doesn't shine into it. But even if you do, because it looks nice, right? There's certain things that you can do, like you can tint the glass. You can put 5% of tint on the windows, on the glass behind in the west end zone. Easy thing to fix, right? You can also put curtains in the end zone, and that would cover up. You can make them blue, you know what I'm saying, and make the curtains into a star and make it look really cool. You can do all these things. Well, Jerry was asked about that after the game too. Same interview he did where he said that the team played better without Dak Prescott, right? And if I'm Dak, I'm seriously considering just pulling my no trade clause and getting the hell out of Dodge. I would. You know what I mean? Like, I sat here and ripped my leg apart for your ass, right? And your interview after the game is, well, shit, we were better without Dak today, even though your quarterback threw for 45 yards and fumbled twice. And you got beat by your division rival. And I mean, you didn't just get beat, you got your ass whooped, right? So now I'm not saying if Dak is the quarterback in the Philly game, do they win? Probably not. They definitely don't. You know what I mean? Because the team is just not talented enough to beat Philly, right? But you go into the game with your starting quarterback, you put up more than 9 points. I just believe that you put up more than 9 points. Final score might be 32-16, right? But you score more points. Your quarterback is your backup quarterback. Both of your backup quarterbacks are just not as good as your starter. So what gives? Mike McCarthy, there's a lot of rumors going around, a lot of things going around about Deion Sanders being the next head coach. And I think that would be a mistake because I don't think Deion's coaching style and the players in the NFL can coexist. He's a demanding coach. He likes a lot of things a certain way. He likes a lot of people in the locker room a certain way. Deion likes to have a lot of control. First of all, Jerry's not going to allow him to have that control because Deion Sanders is the kind of coach where the star is going to shine really, really bright as soon as he walks into the room because it's showtime, prime time, right? Well, that would take away from Jerry. So you can niche that Deion probably won't be the head coach of this team. Probably not. Is there a need for a coaching change now? Has Mike McCarthy lost control of the locker room? Well, here's the thing. And I'm giving you my honest opinion about it. You can take it with a grain of salt. You can take it for what it's worth. I'm just giving you my opinion on it. How can you lose something how can you lose control of something that you never had control of? From the day you came into this organization, you never had control of this team. Let's just be honest. You didn't have control of the team. So how can you lose control of something that you never had control of in the first place? We all know who calls the shots. It ain't Mike McCarthy. It's not. So Danny asked the question about Bill Belichick, and he is dead set on me talking about Bill Belichick, which is kind of weird, Danny, but it's all good because we'll talk about him right now. So Bill Belichick, right? First of all, Bill Belichick went to an Atlanta team that he had the job for. Before Raheem Morris was the head coach in Atlanta, he had the job in Atlanta. That was his job. But Bill Belichick went in and asked for some things. He wants to be the general manager. He wants to have control of the team. He doesn't want anybody in his locker room but him and his coaching staff. Bill Belichick wants to choose his own coaching staff. So let's be honest. Bill Belichick would never come here either. He wouldn't. Because Jerry's not going to relinquish that control. It's not going to happen. So coaches, strong-willed head coaches that like to do things their way, right? don't want any distractions, don't want anything happening with the team, right? Other than what they have going on with the team. They want full control of the team. You're not going to get that from here. Not from the Dallas Cowboys, not as long as Jerry is the coach. D, what up, baby? Not going to happen. So, what can you do as a team to block out the distractions that are happening around this team right now? This team is in a state of turmoil. It is. And if you paid attention, any kind of attention to anything that was going on in the offseason, right? You knew or you had a feeling that it could be this way. So me and Derek, my buddy right here, man, this is one of my best friends in the world. You understand what I'm saying? Me and this dude have been knowing each other since we were knee-high to grasshoppers, right? And we talk about the Cowboys all the time because Derek is one of the biggest Cowboy fans I've ever met in my life, right? He loves the Cowboys just like I love the Cowboys, just like everybody here loves the Cowboys. And we just want to see them win. That's what we want. But we talked about this season, and Derek was like, we're a playoff team, we're a playoff team, we're a playoff team. But then we started talking about position by position. And we came up with this theory that the Cowboys will win 4 games this year. And it hurt to come up with that analysis, right? Because they didn't get any better, right? But then you start to realize that people starting to figure out what's going on with this team. They're starting to figure out, they're starting to see through the clouds. They're starting to see what's going on with this team. And then you start having interviews like this.
You know how you easily could have afforded Derrick Henry if you had paid CeeDee Lamb when you should have, if you had paid Dak Prescott when you should have. Most teams don't wait until an hour before the season starts to sign their quarterback to the biggest contract in the history of the National Football League. If they had decided to treat the offseason like it began before September 1st, they could easily have afforded Derrick Henry and a lot of other pieces. So what you saw on display yesterday was a team that during this offseason got worse and more expensive, which is bad management. It is bad ownership. It is bad leadership from a football standpoint. And that's what was on display from the Cowboys yesterday. So they could easily have handled the Derrick Henry contract if they had paid CeeDee Lamb before everyone else got their contract, if they had paid Dak Prescott before all the other quarterbacks got their contracts, and if they had handled any of their offseason business in the actual offseason.
So people are starting to understand what's happening, right? This is just bad management. This is bad management from the upper chain of command, right? And the upper chain of command is the owner, CEO, CFO, everything that you want to think of, and it's Jerry Jones, right? So now, what can the team do about it? What can you do about it right now? There's nothing that you can do. You can focus. That's it. There are some bright parts of this team that will be here for years. Damari Overshown, great linebacker. Maris Lufau, excellent player. A little bit rough around the edges, but flies around, hustles, and gets to the ball, right? Micah Parsons comes out after the game on Sunday against the Eagles and says some things about his head coach that probably he shouldn't have said, right? And for everybody that did not hear what he said, this is what he had to say.
Contracts are outside. There's of course going to be questions. What's the sentiment inside the locker room, and what do you tell people who are worried about what the will be your coaches?
You know, that's above my pay grade about if Mike is coaching again next year. But you know, all coaching aside, Mike can leave and go wherever he wants. But guys, I kind of feel bad for guys like Zach Martin and guys who might be on their last show on their way out. You know, because that's what I wanted to hold the trophy for. You know, you want to win games and do great things with those type of legends who put in more time and work than Mike McCarthy ever did. So
now, I think Micah Parsons got a bad rap for that, right? The first part of his interview was absolutely honest. He said that's above my pay grade, and there's nothing I can do about that. But then Micah Parsons started being podcasting Micah Parsons, right? And started going on about how he feels sorry for players like Zach Martin. He wants to hold up a trophy for Zach Martin. This is kind of like, this is his last season, could be his last season, probably should be his last season. And Mike McCarthy has put, and Zach Martin has put in way more work than Mike McCarthy ever has. I don't think he meant it like that, but it's kind of one of those moments where you put your foot in your mouth and it's too late to turn back, right? I think what he probably meant to say was that, Zach Martin works really hard on the field and he's put in a lot of work on the field that Mike McCarthy hasn't put on the field. But Mike McCarthy puts in a lot of work for this football team, and Mike McCarthy has to deal with a lot of bullshit that comes with this football team as well. First of all, Mike McCarthy probably didn't get to choose his own coaching staff. He probably chose Al Harris. That's probably the only person that he chose because Al Harris played for him. He knew Al Harris would be good with the secondary. But he probably didn't choose Mike Zimmer. He probably didn't choose Brian Schottenheimer. That was probably all chosen for him, right? He probably sitting in the building 20 hours a day trying to figure out, 18, 20 hours, putting in a lot of work, sleeping on the couch in the office, trying to put together game plans that, in the back of his mind probably knows that they won't work. And he really, with this game plan and the stuff, especially the offensive game plan and the offensive game calling, like he has nobody to blame with, for that for him but himself. So Jerry was asked, is it time for a change? Is it time for a change in the locker room? And Jerry said no. And, why would you say no? Why? And again, this is my opinion, right? And just my opinion, just my assessment, things that I've seen with the team and the things I've seen from the team. But I don't think that Jerry has the want to build this relationship with anybody else. He doesn't want to build a relationship where he has complete control over somebody anymore. So I wouldn't be surprised if Mike McCarthy gets an extension on his contract. Now, what really might screw the pooch or whatever you want to call it, for lack of better terms, is if Mike McCarthy doesn't want to stay here. And if I was him, I wouldn't stay. There's no way that I would stay. Kind of like, hey, we had fun. It was cool, man. We had a good time. We had some good seasons. We didn't have we had some not so good seasons. Yeah, it's about time for me to go do other things, spend some time with my family and do some other things in life. Right. So, no, I don't think that there will be big changes coming up any soon. I think they're going to ride this one out. And you got to ride it out because right now, I don't think anybody wants to come into this dumpster fire. Not anybody worth a damn. I wouldn't. There's no way. Al Harris would probably take over the team. Mike Zimmer would probably take over the team. One of the coaches from the staff, if Mike McCarthy got fired, they take an interim head coach job and they'd be gone by the end of the season. I don't know if I would want to do that. You got a really big interstate game where little brother comes into town on Monday night, and little brother is hungry because little brother just blew a big lead last week in a game where the opposing quarterback threw 5 picks and you still lost. What a better game to get back on track than the Dallas Cowboys. What a better game. There are things that the Cowboys can do not to spoil it, but to slow down Houston when they come in here, because they're going to come in here with a chip on their shoulder and they're coming in here with a head full of steam. They're pissed off. They blew a game at home. They only got to travel, 240 miles up the road to Dallas, little 20-minute, 30-minute flight, right? And come in here and whoop your ass on primetime TV on Monday night. That's exactly what they're going to try to do. Offensively, they're okay. They're not great. They're okay, right? They got a pretty decent offensive line. They got a good running back. They got a good quarterback, and they kind of got a depleted wide receiving core, right? And they're going to give you some opportunities to do some things right, where you can get the ball back. They're going to give you some opportunities for some turnovers. Houston will do that, right? But their defense is really good. I mean, really good. And they got a really good head coach. And their head coach, this is his defensive scheme. He bought a guy in from San Francisco that knows his scheme to be the defensive coordinator, and they work pretty good on defense, right? They do. Their one weakness is that you can kind of run on them. But we can't run. Derrick Henry's in Baltimore. That's just where he is. That's where he's going to stay. That's what it is. The Cowboys are going to have to find a way to bring all the focus in-house. Let whatever happens with outside entities happen with outside entities. And I mean outside the locker room. No matter how bad Jerry wants to be in the locker room, he's outside the locker room. He's the owner. You got to take that stuff with a grain of salt. Everything that he says to the media, everything that's going on, man, you got to just block that stuff out. Micah Parsons is going to have to chill with this podcast and shit. He's going to have to. It's starting to become a distraction with the team. Now, there's a part of me that seriously thinks that maybe Micah Parsons is trying to talk his way out of Dallas. Maybe. You know what I mean? Next year is actually the last year on that contract. It is. And there's a way that you could trade him, right? And you probably pick up some premium draft picks. And you could probably make up for that draft pick that you just wasted on Jonathan Mingo, the 4th round draft pick. You probably could. I don't think that the Cowboys would trade Micah Parsons. I really don't. But it's possible. It could bring you some draft capital that you just wasted again with bad management. I do not understand for the life of me why you would trade a 4th round pick again for a player that has only produced 45 catches and no touchdowns in their NFL career. It's baffling. Like, you try to figure out where it makes sense. Picking up Will Greer and put him on the practice squad, that makes sense. I talked about it a couple podcasts ago, how Dak Prescott was on the sideline during a preseason game. He was calling the plays, and Will Greer went out and got himself a job in Carolina. Never really got an opportunity to play, just sat on the practice squad. So the Cowboys re-signed him back because they feel like they may need some kind of spark at quarterback. But the thing about your quarterback play with this Dallas Cowboys team this year is it don't matter who you have at quarterback. You got to be able to block. You got to be able to run. You got to be able to do other things than throw the ball to number 88. You have to be able to do that. Or you're going to see more quarterback performances like you saw against Philly. Houston is probably a better defensive team than Philly is. They just are, right? That's the way they're made. Their head coach, like I said, is a defensive head coach. He is going to make sure that defense is strong. This game could be worse quarterback-wise than playing Philly. It could be. And their offense, they love to put the ball down the field. And without a pass rush from the Cowboys, right, that's going to be really, really hard to cover, especially later in the game. First and second quarter, we've seen that the Cowboys, in some games, we've seen where the Cowboys come out and they play pretty good for the first quarter, or they may play good for the first half. Then teams make adjustments against them, and in the third quarter, they just get demolished, and then, it goes on and they lose the game, especially at home. Home is horrible. Haven't even come close to winning the game at home. Damn the 28-25 score or 28-20, whatever it was against Baltimore, because the score going into the fourth quarter was 28-6. That's just what it was. You're going to have to find a way as a team to come together, because these are the times, right, when the going is tough and everything is not going good. This is the time where you start to earn respect from your teammates. If you're going out there playing hard, giving it all you got, win or lose, right? We're going out there and we're going to make somebody going to feel us today, right? And you might luck up on a win or two. But again, I asked, like at the beginning of this, right? Is it worth it? One victory could cost you a top 3 draft pick and push you all the way down to 10 or 11. Now, I don't really think that's a bad thing, but it could be a good thing. And I'll tell you why. And this is just me thinking. let's say you get a top 3 draft pick. Let's say you come in and you get the number 3 draft pick. There's a lot of teams in the NFL that are going to want to do things with especially with the high draft pick, and they'll trade you for that. They will. And you can make up for this 4th round pick. You can get a first and a third, right? And then you have 2 thirds, and you can trade that with 2 fourths. So Danny says, well, who's going to be the head coach? That's a great question. That is an excellent question. There's some guys that I know that I would want to be the head coach, but I don't know if they would come in here and be the head coach. I don't. Well, the first thing that I would want to do now, here's one thing, Danny, before I go into that. Here's one thing that you have to realize you have to realize that these are the things that have to transpire before you can even think about, a head coach. First of all, you finish the season, you got a high draft pick. You need to have your coaching staff in place. The first thing that has to happen is that your owner has to let you choose your own coaching staff. And that would open up the doors to a lot of people that probably wouldn't want to be the head coach here because the coaching staff would already be in place. Jerry has a horrendous habit of hiring coordinators first, right? And other position coaches first, and then hiring a head coach. You also have to have a head coach that understands that Dak and CeeDee Lamb are going to be here for a long, long time, at least for the next 4 years after this year. And they have to be okay with that. And I'm sure that there's a lot of head coaches out there, a lot of coaches out there that are like, cool, I can work with Dak and CeeDee. The Dak and CeeDee combo is pretty dynamic. If you let it be dynamic, right? There's a lot of ways. I talked about a few episodes ago how you can open up close to $100 million in salary cap space. You would have to start over, but you can start over. You can plug holes with free agency, right? Where you don't have to just build in the draft. But then your owner would have to be okay with building in free agency because he's had a really bad habit of not doing that as well. Oh, we ain't got no money. But then all of a sudden, the first game of the season, you got some. It's just bad management. You have to make this management thing better. The ideal thing for this team would be for Jerry to step down as the general manager and hire a real general manager. Let's just be honest. Precisely, Jeffrey. Precisely. It has to be cleaned out, starting with the GM. Precisely. Let's be honest. You've seen general managers come in and just clean up teams and all of a sudden, like overnight, they're good. The Washington Commanders. The Houston Texans. Houston Texans were in complete turmoil. Their quarterback was out getting massages and shit. You know what I'm saying? And he was about to go to jail and lawsuits, all types of things. The team was just spiraling out of control. One move, new general manager hires a new head coach, and all of a sudden they're a playoff team again. It's quick. It's quick. All you have to do is put football people in football positions, and they will hire people to come in and do football things for your football team. Simple. You have to get out of your own way, though. And just like Jeffrey said, starting with the GM, that should be the first thing to go. And that will open up doors for a plethora of people that would love to be head coaches and come in here and be the savior of America's team. It would. So we're in trouble with Jerry because we are stuck with a clown in the circus. Yes. And more yes. But the thing about it, Danny, is that it's been that way for 30 years. Nothing has changed. It's the same old thing. But people are now starting to realize it. It kind of baffles me when you go onto social media, you start looking at YouTube videos and everything, and people always want to bash the quarterback. That's the first thing they want to bash. And it's not just Dak. It was Tony Romo too. Tony Romo used to get the same thing. Same old 8-8 bullshit. Same old 8-8 bullshit. Same old 8-8 bullshit. Well, now with Dak Prescott, it's same old 12-5 bullshit. Same old 12-5 bullshit. Same old first round loss. Can't win a playoff game. Can't do this. Can't do that. There's a reason why you can't do that, man. You're getting out coached. You're getting out coached. The Cowboys are hiring coaches, right, that want to be coached. Absolutely, Jeffrey, you're right. That want to be coaches, right? They want to be coaches in the NFL. They're either on their last leg or they've been out of the NFL for a long time, or Jason Garrett, Kellen Moore, all of these dudes came up inside of the system. So you know how this shit works. Ain't nothing new to you. You know how this works. You know Big Daddy in charge. You know that. So don't come in here and try to squeeze one, put one around me. I got eyes everywhere. You know what I'm saying? You're not putting one past old Jerry. You're not doing it. And that's the stuff that you have to deal with here. And like Danny said, right, it's a circus. What Dalton Schultz say? It was a zoo. He said it was a zoo in here. Said he didn't know how it worked. I just thought it was a zoo. You know what I'm saying? I thought this was normal, everyday behavior till I went somewhere else. Go look at the Washington Commanders roster, man. It's full of Cowboys, and they winning. And they're winning. And they got the defensive coordinator from the Cowboys who probably should have been the head coach here, right? But he probably just didn't want to put up with this shit. He didn't. But as a team, you have to block all of this nonsense out, and you have to come together and just play hard and just see where the chips may fall. There's not going to be any big changes, not in the foreseeable future, unless something really bad happens, right? Now, if you go out here and get beat 60-something to nothing to Houston, yeah, now you can start talking about there might be a coaching change. Maybe, right? But like I said, I just don't think Jerry is interested in building this type of relationship with anybody else. He's older. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to have to run around and keep trying to correct you and tell you, hey, man, that's not how we do things around here. You're going to play the players that I want to play. You're going to make me look good. When in actuality, if you just hired a GM, right? If you hired a GM today or at the end of the season, you hire a GM, you get a coaching staff in here that wants to win. You bring some quality players in here that want to win. You can sit back in the owner's box and just be Jerry and sip your blue label and just be cool. You know what I'm saying? And the camera's going to be on you because you're going to be a total genius because you went from nothing to Super Bowl champion. Easier said than done, though. Seriously. Jerry created the same culture as Al Davis did with the Raiders. Absolutely right. You're right. But the thing about it is, though, Jeff, is that I think this one might be worse. It might be because even under Al Davis, right, the Raiders still would have these seasons where they would flash and they would be really, really good, really good. And then they go back to being bad, right? The Cowboys have just been bad. Like, not only have you not made it to a Super Bowl in 30 years, you ain't even made it to an NFC Championship game in 30 years. If it wasn't for the Tuck rule, the Raiders would have went to the Super Bowl. At least they've been that far. You know what I'm saying? We ain't even sniffed the NFC Championship game. We ain't came close. We haven't even come close. I think the best team that the Cowboys had was probably the year that Dez caught it. That was probably the team that I really, really thought had an opportunity to win a Super Bowl because they were really good and they just ran the ball really well. They had already gone into Seattle and whooped that ass just running the ball on them. The genius of Jerry Jones, how he changed the tones from losing to the Cowboy fan base. And that's the thing. So there's this story, right? And I think I've told it once before where this dude was on like one of these social media sites and he told this story, man. And it was man, it was such the Dallas Cowboys, man, that it was crazy. And the dude was talking about a restaurant and how this restaurant, dude buys this restaurant and the restaurant ain't even really that good. And it's, it's a cheap restaurant. He buys the restaurant for cheap and he hires this killer chef, man. And the chef comes in, man, changes the whole menu, kind of tells him, just step out of the way, man. I got this. Change the whole menu, change the whole staff, does some interior decorating inside of it, man. painted some walls, did some things, and all of a sudden people start showing up. And next thing you know, man, this is like the best restaurant in the city. And it just continues to be the best restaurant in the city, but the chef is getting all the credit. The chef is getting, chef of the year, all these interviews, all these newspaper, articles about him and all types of things, man. But the owner is just sitting back and it's pissing him off because this ain't your dream, homeboy. This is my dream. You know what I'm saying? So he fires the chef. And no matter what, right? He keeps bringing these bullshit chefs in and they're getting kind of close to it sometimes, but the food is not really that good. But people still coming to the restaurant. They're still buying the food. They're still doing all these things, right? And it's really because of what happened in the past, right? The food ain't that great no more. You know what I'm saying? But you're still coming just for the nostalgia. You got all these Chef of the Year awards up and all this Restaurant of the Year and all this stuff up. But you ain't been no Restaurant of the Year in over 30 years. And that's the Dallas Cowboys. Not gonna hire another chef to come in here and take my shine no more. You crazy. That's not happening. And that's Dallas. That's what it is. And that's what we've become accustomed to. But the bad part about the Dallas Cowboys, and particularly the fans, is that you want to single out a single player for 30 years of failure. And that's just not it's not right. It's not right at all. Right? You can blame Dak Prescott all you want to. But if you look at this team, all you have to do is look at this team and say, how many of these players will start on other teams? It ain't many. None of your right side of your offensive line can start on any other team. Your center, possibly, because he's actually doing okay. Your left guard is your all-star, right? He's your guy. He's your all-pro player. Your left tackle, the rookie, probably couldn't start anywhere. None of them receivers but CD Lamb are starting anywhere. None of them running backs would be on a semi-pro team. You understand what I'm saying? None of your defensive tackles, except for Osio Digizua, would even be on a semi-pro football team. Micah Parsons could play anywhere he wants to play. DeMarcus Lawrence could probably start for half the teams in the NFL. They might give the rookie linebackers a shot. Trayvon Diggs right now, you know what I'm saying? He'd probably be a nickel corner on some other teams. But, Trayvon Diggs, once he gets over this knee injury, he'll be okay. You haven't even seen your other all-pro cornerback because he got a stress fracture in his foot that's kept him out for 11 weeks, right? Kalen Carson, your other corner, he ain't starting on the other teams. Your safeties ain't starting on the other teams, but you want to blame Dak Prescott for this team. That's crazy as hell. That is crazy. You get this dude no running game, a bad offensive line, and one wide receiver to throw to. But it's Dak's fault. But I told everybody at the beginning of the season that this would happen. This team would be terrible. I picked them to win 4 games. I'm 1 off. They're going to find a win somewhere to make me right. Watch. And the season would break down and everybody would just blame Dak Prescott for it. I also said that there would be a major injury. One of these players was going to get hurt because this team wasn't very good and you wasn't going to do no protecting. But I also said, I hope it ain't the quarterback and I hope it ain't the wide receiver. And then what happens? Both of them get hurt in the same game. CD seems like he's going to be all right. You know what I'm saying? But Dak, you start ripping meat off the bones. You got to go get that. You got to go get that repaired, man. You're done. Your season ended today. So now, Cooper Rush, when he was winning all these football games, He had a good running game. He had a good offensive line. They were playing good defense. You know what I'm saying? Even in the game when they played Philly, when he threw 2 picks and lost a fumble, they still almost came back and won it at the end. And it wasn't one of those things where it was like, okay, we're going to make this last second touchdown. Like they almost caught them in the beginning of the fourth quarter. They just couldn't seal the deal. He came close to being 6-0 as the starter. But this ain't the same team. It's not. It's not the same team. Cooper Rush is not going to go out there and just wheel you to a victory. He's not going to do it. He's not capable of doing it. Now, don't get me wrong. He is a capable backup quarterback in the NFL, but he ain't Dak Prescott. And you wanted Dak Prescott to be Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and all those dudes this year. He ain't that. He's not that. You know what Dak is. You know exactly what Dak is. Dak is a serviceable quarterback in the NFL. He'll win you a few games, but he needs some help. He needs some help. Hell, all of them need help. Patrick Mahomes needs help. But you see how that team does. If somebody goes down on that team, they'll go get some help if they got to, because that's because they want to win. They want to win. Buffalo, they want to win. Baltimore, they want to win. We'll make mid-season acquisitions to win. Win. San Francisco, they starting to get healthy. Christian McCaffrey just came back last week. They about to make a run. They want to win. Detroit, they make all kinds of moves because they want to win. As mad as it makes me, Philadelphia, every year they make acquisitions because they want to win. We trying to see what Zeke gonna do. Anyway, so to answer the question at the beginning, no, I don't think any major change is coming. I think we kind of stuck with what we got this year, but it might be a good thing. It might be. It might be. You might get some draft capital for this. You might get a lot of things for this, and I think that it will make the team much better, but you're going to have to wait a year. It's not going to happen this year. I don't think there's a magical turnaround for this team. I could be wrong. It would be really cool if I was, right? But if you just look at what's on paper and what's going on with the team and all of these outside distractions that's going on and your owner trying to stay relevant in the media, right? It's probably not going to happen. Probably not. So what can you do as a team? You can buckle down, close the doors, all the outside entities, keep that shit to a minimum and go out there and play football. Just play hard as you can. That's it. Just play hard. And you'll get one. You'll get one or two of them, right? You might not win a whole lot, but, we'll play for each other. And that's the best that you can do. Talent-wise, you have a talent issue. Talent-wise, there's a lot of teams in the NFL you can't beat. Can't do it. So, anyway, since the Monday night game this week, Saturday, we'll go all over the keys to victory. We'll go over, just kind of breaking down the Texans, what they do good, what they don't do well. And we'll go over keys to victory on ways that, the Cowboys may be able to sneak one from the little brother, because little brother's coming in here, man. Little brother just had a bad outing. Little brother pissed off. He come home. You know what I'm saying? He going to be mad. And he know, you kind of the walking wounded, and he kick you right in that wound and knock you down on the ground. But you're going to try to keep little brother from doing that anyway, because we can't lose to little brother. So we'll break all that down for the Texans. And then we'll go into Monday night after the game. No matter what, win or lose, we'll go live. You guys like here, subscribe to it, man. Thank you guys for hanging around. We'll be live Saturday and we'll be live on Monday right after the game. And, man, hey, go Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys for life. Win, lose, or draw. I'm going to ride with them till the wheels fall off. Even though it kind of look like them wheels are kind of wobbly right now. All right, everybody. This has been fun, man. I look forward to seeing you guys soon. Like I said, on Saturday, we'll be back on here, and we'll definitely be back on here Monday after the game. All right, everybody. You guys have a great rest of your night, great rest of the week, and go Cowboys. All right, y'all. Peace.